While all sexual immorality pays homage to the deity Baal, worship to Baal Peor was for the extreme, hardcore, desensitized perverts. Followers and devotees of Baal Peor willingly forfeited all moral standards. In fact, the more disrespectful, animalistic the act, the greater the form of worship. Baal Peor worship was considered to be vile and obscene. This was the heaviest end, the most degrading, demonic, energized form of idol worship available. This was basically anything goes with no limits or restrictions, satanic worship. The Moabite festivals were nothing more than sex, drugs and rock and roll at its most depraved. For this was state-sponsored, church-endorsed corporate worship for all the family to get involved with. Worship always consisted of vibrating, pulsating music, whipping up the people into a frenzy of sexual dancing, singing of songs which were hymns to Satan's ears, drunken orgies, group sex, swinging, visiting temple prostitutes, child sacrifices, deviant sexual practices, fetishes, perversions, open drug abuse, self-harming and so much more that we couldn't even begin to imagine, all carried out in open and on full public display. The Moabite festivals would make Woodstock and Glastonbury look like Boy Scout jamborees. The cultic high priests would make Marilyn Manson look like a choir boy in drag. The cult prostitutes would make Gaga, Cyrus, Rihanna, Keisha, Minaj and the rest of those Illuminati witches and whores look like a bunch of misbehaving nuns. And sadly, this is what Israel was lured into after spending 40 years with God in the wilderness. You would think that the closer Israel got to the promised land, which was a type of heaven, that the holier that they would become, filled with a sense of excitement and anticipation of what lay ahead. But sadly, we know that this wasn't the case. The Bible clearly records that these practices were adopted by the Israelites. Actually, through Scripture, we know that the Jews turned their back on the true God and adopted Baal as their favourite god for worship. Try to imagine what God felt when Baal worship became the state-sanctioned worship of Israel. Kings such as Ahab, Manasseh, Solomon all had their altars to Baal and groves to Asherah, and in fact, Ammon in 2 short years was able to take Baal worship to a lower depravity than the Canaanites. Guys, Scripture has repeatedly called for our attention to Balaam's doctrine. For hundreds of years after the event happened, Psalms 106, 28 and 31 reminds us not to provoke God with such idolatry worship. Hosea 9 and 10, Micah 6 and 5 and 2 Peter 2:15, Jude 11 and finally in Revelations 2 and 14 where the Lord himself describes that he has a few things against those who hold to the teachings of Balaam. As the kings of Israel and Judah had their temples to Baal and festivals for the masses to come and fornicate and worship, the question I want you to ask yourself is today, has all of this disappeared? And if not, what do the current day temples of Baal and Asherah look like? Because we have all become so desensitized to our surroundings and environment, you may be a frequent visitor to these temples and festivals yourself, for they have managed to blend in so well that they have been accepted by us as concerts and gigs which promote fornication through dance and song. Bars, clubs, pubs, discos, strip joints, lap dancing clubs, brothels that encourage us to lose our inhibitions and self-control, and abortion clinics that will dispose of your careless mistakes. And if you watch those perverse music channels, if you insist on playing those occultic porn pop music channels in your home, you may as well turn your living room into a shrine for the demonic to come and congregate. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ, then why do you insist on showing up at these temples and festivals and allowing your spirit to fornicate with the demonic? Man, make no mistake, Scripture has recorded these warnings for our benefit to stay away from Baal Peor. Quickly, if we take a look at the parable where Jesus was explaining the 10 virgins, 5 virgins were ready for the Lord and 5 virgins were out seeking oil. So what that tells us is the condition you are found in upon the Lord's return is the condition that you will spend eternity. So what I'm telling you is who you are worshipping upon the Lord's return will affect where you spend eternity. My name is Gervin and this has been Gen 3X. Thank you.